I had been in an arranged engagement with the golden heir for only a few months when he fell in love with a poor scholarship girl who had once saved his life and insisted on breaking off our engagement. I tried to reason with him. You've been competing with your brother for years, and you've finally reached the decisive moment. Why would you ruin your future over a poor girl who means nothing to you? If you truly like her, you might as well keep her as a mistress in a gilded cage. The scholarship girl, Candy, felt humiliated. She attempted suicide several times by hanging, but Ethan Reed saved her again and again. From that moment, he hated me to the core. He plotted a car crash to take me down with him, but while he died, I by sheer fate survived. 10 years later, the first thing he did after seizing full control of the Reed family's power was drive my father to his death, push my mother into madness, until she chose to jump to her end and lock me away in a basement. The tendons in my hands were cut. I was tortured day and night, and even my only daughter died in a car accident on her way home after learning the truth. Ethan laughed like a madman, saying, "Emily Warren, the ending you've come to is exactly what you brought on yourself." When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the arranged marriage. My parents asked me whom I wanted to marry. Without hesitation, I raised my hand and pointed at his older brother, the careless young master. I died in Young City during the second snowfall. Ethan Reed locked me in a basement for months, sealed off all news from outside, had my hand tendons cut, and soaked my body with salt water day and night. Down there, I learned only that my father, who had treated him like his own son, had been driven to death by debt, and that my mother, who had always cherished beauty, had lost her mind and chosen to leap from a building. The Warren family was shattered beyond repair. Ethan hated me. Every day, he ordered his men to stitch my tendons back together, only to cut them again. Watching me beg for death thrilled him. The pain left me unable to breathe, and with the last of my strength, I demanded, "Ethan Reed, why? Why are you doing this?" The Reeds and the Warrens had been close for 100 years, and Ethan and I had grown up together as childhood sweethearts. Since I was a little girl, I had followed him everywhere. Whatever he wanted, I begged for it, because I was the only daughter with no brothers. After we married, my parents treated Ethan as if he were their own child. Whatever he wanted, they did everything they could to help him. Yet during those 10 years, Ethan secretly acquired Warren Group shares, forced the company into bankruptcy, drove his own father-in-law to suicide by overdose, and pushed his mother-in-law into madness until she leapt from the 18th floor. Listening to my questions, Ethan's cold gaze fell on me. He gave a crazed laugh. "Emily Warren, you drove Candy to her death, and you still have the nerve to ask me why." "Candy," I froze. Then, after a moment, realized she was the poor girl who had saved Ethan's life on the mountain years ago. Seeing the man I had loved for more than a decade show such tenderness when he spoke her name, I was stunned. Then I understood, and a bitter laugh broke from me. Tears spilled down until they turned to blood. With all my strength, I clutched his hand. "Ethan Reed, don't you hate me? Then kill me now." Just then his assistant rushed in, pale and panicked. "Sir, there are rumors spreading that you forced Mr. and Mrs. Warren to their deaths. Miss Anna found out, and on her way home from school, she was in a car accident. She died instantly." "What? What did you say?" Who died in a car accident." My body froze, my voice trembling as I questioned the assistant. He stepped back in silence. Ethan was stunned too, but only for a second. Then he sneered, "Dead is dead. Do you expect me to burn incense for her?" In that moment, I was grateful my tendons had been reattached. Using every ounce of strength, I stood and slapped him hard across the face. The next second, the force sent me crashing to the ground, broken and humiliated, but even so, I shouted, "Ethan Reed, you didn't even spare your own daughter. You're worse than an animal." "Daughter?" He curled his lips into a mocking smile, as if he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. Ethan sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You filthy woman. The man you had that one night stand with was none other than my brother's illegitimate son. My brother touched you, and now you're nothing but a used woman. Just the sight of you disgusts me." The despair on my face froze, my pupils widening as the truth sank in. Years ago, when the accident happened with the scholarship girl, I was the one who survived. My parents, worried Ethan might reset me for it, planned to cancel the engagement. But on the night before it was to be broken, someone drugged me. When I woke up, the person lying beside me was Ethan. With what had happened, and with him vowing to take responsibility, and promising a lifetime of loyalty. And because I already cherished the bond we'd built as childhood sweethearts, I didn't cancel the engagement. Instead, I agreed to our betrothal and eventually married him. This sudden truth crushed me like the last straw. I couldn't hold back anymore. I screamed, my voice tearing out of me, filled with hatred and despair. My face twisted with madness, as tears streamed uncontrollably. Ethan reveled in my breakdown. He laughed wildly and ordered his men to cut my tendons again. His assistant turned his face away, unable to bear watching, but Ethan insisted on having my tendons cut and sewn back together every day. He kept a knife soaked in salt water, slicing my broken body one cut at a time. Yet my eyes had grown hollow. No matter what he did, no matter what he said, even when he mixed my daughter's ashes into rice and forced me to eat it, I had no reaction. Seeing me like a lifeless puppet, Ethan gradually lost interest. He tossed the knife to the floor, ready to speak. In that instant, I reached for the blade, and with swift and ruthless precision stabbed it toward him. Even as he kicked me away, I laughed manically, cursing him through my blood and breath. Ethan Reed, I curse you for all eternity. May you never know peace in this life or the next. As my consciousness faded, I stared blankly at you in city, where snow hadn't fallen in more than a decade. Yet in June, snowflakes drifted from the sky. One flake landed in my palm and melted into water. Unwilling and bitter, I closed my eyes for the final time. Emily, have you decided who you want to marry? My mother's gentle voice asked. I lifted my eyes in confusion. The swirling snow was gone, but the pain in my chest swelled unrelentingly. When I looked at my mother, whole, sane, and alive, I froze for several seconds before rushing into her arms, holding her tightly, my voice trembling. Mom, you're here, you're still here. Even then, I could hardly believe that I had been reborn. My mother stood stiff, surprised, but instinctively stroked my back to comfort me. Softly she asked, who bullied my sweet girl? Tell Mommy, and I'll stand up for you. I couldn't stop crying. In my past life, Ethan had dragged my deranged mother into the basement, and she hadn't even recognized me. She had knelt before me, repeating over and over that it was her fault. But now, seeing her intact, I should have been happy, yet the tears poured endlessly. My father frowned, demanding, was it Ethan again? Did that boy bully you? He spends every day tormenting you. If you ask me, forget about this marriage. It's not like your mom, and I can't support you for life. Before his words had even settled, Mrs. Reed stepped forward, grabbing my hand with a mock anger aimed at my father. What do you mean by that, Victor? My son and your daughter grew up as childhood sweethearts, and everyone here knows their bond runs deeper than anyone else's. It's modern times. Marriages are free now, but even if you can't bear to let your daughter go, you'll have to accept reality, won't you? Emily, don't you agree with your aunt? She raised her chin with confidence, smiling as though the outcome was already written. Everyone present knew the Warrants, and the Reeds had been close for generations. Emily, Warren, and Ethan Reed were known to have grown up together. This banquet, though said to be a way for the Warren family to choose a son-in-law, had in fact already been decided long ago. It was only waiting to be announced. I snapped back to myself, pulling free from Mrs. Reed's grip. Following her gaze, I saw Ethan standing not far away. Most people had already guessed that the Warren family's choice was none other than Ethan Reed. And this marriage was critical, tied directly to his claim as the future heir of the Reed family. From the very start of the banquet, 4 or 5 groups of guests had already come over to greet me warmly, while the Reed family's eldest son, Nathan Reed, lounged lazily with his circle of unruly friends, whistling and joking around. Feeling the worried gazes of my parents, I smiled faintly and said, "Of course my marriage will be decided by me." By the middle of the banquet, Ethan Reed finally had a free moment, and almost by instinct, came to stand at my side. Seeing this, everyone around us smiled with satisfaction. My mother asked me again, "Emily, have you decided who you want to choose?" Before I could answer, Mrs. Reed stepped forward with a confident smile, and Ethan curved his lips arrogantly, as if the matter had already been settled. But I suddenly walked away from him, heading straight toward Nathan, who was still laughing and chatting carelessly with his friends. Lifting my hand, I pointed directly at him. "I want him." The entire room fell into stunned silence. Even Nathan himself turned back in surprise, pointing at his own chest in disbelief. "Then me." I nodded firmly. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, Ethan stormed forward in 2 long strides, seizing my arm in a painful grip. His voice was cold and sharp. "Emily Warren, even if you want to throw a tantrum, there should be a limit. All I asked was for you to kneel and apologize to Candy. It's been more than a month. Why are you still holding on to this? What's the point?" The pain of his grip made me frown deeply. Only then did his words remind me of what had happened more than a month ago. At Candy's memorial, someone spread a rumor that I had hired people to steal money, and I was nearly destroyed by public opinion. I didn't even know where the slander had come from, but Ethan had believed it and come to settle accounts with me, demanding I kneel publicly and apologize. Furious, I had given him the cold shoulder for more than a month. It wasn't until last week, when he came to my home to apologize sincerely, that I finally forgave him. I had just opened my mouth to explain when, in the next instant, Ethan was kicked hard to the floor. Shocked, I turned back and saw Nathan standing there, tilting his chin lazily as he barked, "Get lost. Stay away from my fiancé." Ethan was stunned. To be humiliated so openly, in front of so many people, made his blood boil. He reacted almost instantly, leaping up and charging at Nathan, and the two brothers began to fight violently. The banquet hall erupted into chaos. I frowned, wanting to step forward to stop them, but Nathan's friends blocked my way. "Warning, hey, little brother's fiancé, don't move. If you get caught up in this and hurt, it'll be trouble." Even as he spoke, Nathan had already won the fight. He turned, locked eyes with me for 2 seconds, then reached out to take my hand and lead me away. As we took the first step, Ethan, lying on the ground clutching his stomach, shouted after me, "Emily Warren, if you walk away with him from this moment on, I'll never acknowledge you again." I didn't hesitate. Instead, I quickened my pace. Once outside the banquet hall, I released Nathan's hand and gulped fresh air and great heaving breaths. Only then did I truly believe it. I had been reborn. The Warren family hadn't gone bankrupt. Our home wasn't shattered. My parents were still alive. Everything still had a chance to change. Overwhelmed with joy, I didn't even realize tears were falling. After a long while, the man beside me finally couldn't hold back and muttered, "Hey, why are you crying? If you want to go back, then go back. I won't stop you, but don't start bawling here." Dazed, I touched my face and realized it was wet with real tears. I wiped them furiously, even rubbing my skin raw, but I couldn't stop. Nathan grabbed my hand, staring at me in bafflement. "What's with you, woman? You chose me. You decided to walk out with me, so why are you crying the moment we leave? Cry if you want, but rubbing your tears until your skin's raw. What the hell is that?" Whether in my past life or now, I had never interacted much with this man. This was the first time we'd spoken so closely, and for a moment I just froze, staring straight into his face. He froze, let go of my hand, and after a moment of silence turned his head away, coughing awkwardly. Fine. If you want to go back, then go back. I'm not like that bastard who cares so much about saving face, but a man like him, he doesn't deserve you. He'd better open your eyes wider." After speaking, his mouth felt dry, and he licked his lips unconsciously. I stared at Nathan, dazed, and suddenly remembered that day when I learned about my daughter's death in a car accident. Ethan had said the man I slept with back then was his illegitimate brother. That meant it was Nathan, so Anna was his child. I carefully studied the man in front of me, his eyes, his mouth. They were exactly like Anna's. Before, I had always thought she resembled Ethan, because their brows and eyes seemed similar, and because I had never doubted what had happened that night, but only now was I certain. Anna was Nathan's daughter. Thinking of my sweet girl, my expression darkened instantly, my fists clenching tight without me even realizing it. I didn't notice that Nathan's face had flushed from being stared at so intently. His words faltered, and he coughed several more times in discomfort. But even after a string of coughs, I remained silent, so he waved his hand in front of my eyes to test me. I snapped back and instinctively asked, "Do you have a cold?" He didn't understand. I frowned. "You've been coughing pretty badly." Remembering what had just happened in the banquet hall, I lowered my voice. "I'm sorry, Nathan. I used you as an excuse to get out of that banquet. Since our family was hosting, if I had openly declared I wouldn't go through with the engagement, my parents would have lost face. When I go back, I'll explain everything to them. As for you, just go on living as you always have." Nathan only gave a careless, "Oh," turned around and walked away. Watching his retreating back, I was lost in thought. But when I turned, My gaze collided with Ethan's as he came chasing out after me. I froze for a second, then lifted my hand and slapped him hard across the face. Ethan stood stunned, disbelief written across his expression as if asking, "Are you insane?" I clapped the dust from my hands with disdain. "Ethan Reed, that slap is to tell you that I will never again be the Emily Warren you could summon and dismiss at will." Without a shred of hesitation, I walked away. Even though when I first saw him again, after being reborn, I had wanted nothing more than to tear him apart piece by piece. If he were to die so easily now, how could that ever repay the life of my daughter, who truly died? I closed my eyes, wiping away the single tear at the corner. Before long, my parents returned home. My father quietly placed a box of late-night snacks in my room, while my mother, just as she always had, wrote a note on a sticky pad. "Sweetheart, no matter what you choose, we'll support you." Everyone knew Nathan, as an illegitimate son, was not favored in the Reed family. Otherwise, he wouldn't have amounted to so little. Yet once word spread that I had chosen Nathan Reed at the banquet, the entire circle was in an uproar. All day long, one after another from the Reed family called me, more than a dozen times, but I simply shut off my phone. By evening, Ethan and the scholarship girl, Candy, appeared outside our villa. The maid, unaware of what had happened yesterday and not knowing the truth about Ethan, let him in without hesitation. The moment he saw me, Ethan's attitude did a complete reversal. With uncharacteristic seriousness, he said, "Emily, yesterday was my fault. I lost my temper. I'm here to apologize." Then he nudged Candy forward. She lifted her head with a sweet smile, her eyes glancing toward him for reassurance. "Emily, you really misunderstood me and Ethan. He only felt sorry for me because of my background and treated me with a little more kindness. I never thought something so simple would make you misunderstand. I'm here today to sincerely apologize. I'm sorry, whether it was my fault or not. I just hope you can forgive Ethan." "All right. He really does love you." As she spoke, she gazed up at Ethan with tender eyes, a hint of grievance hidden in them, as though she were wronged, yet still brave. Ethan's heart wavered for a moment before he steadied himself and looked at me. But I gave no reaction at all. Keeping my eyes fixed on the drama playing on the TV, time dragged on. Candy's legs grew sore from standing, and she patted them gently before pouting with wounded grievance in Ethan's direction. But after all, he was still the exalted young master. At the very least, he had done as his mother instructed, bringing Candy to my door to apologize. I was still sitting lazily on the sofa, ordering the maid around. "Luckily, I want a pear. Peel it, slice it, and bring it here." When I saw Candy still standing awkwardly, Ethan immediately invited her to sit down. "Come on now, Mrs. Reed chimed in warmly. "Candy, just treat this place like your own home. No need to be so reserved." Candy's legs were already sore, and hearing that she could sit, she quickly plopped down without hesitation. The maid who had watched Ethan and me grow up together as childhood companions treated him almost like her own child. She immediately yelped and hurried toward the kitchen. I lazily lifted my eyelids and reminded her, "Lily, it's the Warrants who pay your salary." Her footsteps froze, and she turned back to look at me. "From now on, don't let these two dogs into the house again." I set aside the tablet, slipped on my shoes, and prepared to head upstairs. Ethan, instantly furious, blocked my path. "Emily Warren, what's the point of this tantrum? I even brought Candy here to apologize. Do you really have to act like this? Why are you so jealous whenever you see me standing with someone else?" I gave a sharp laugh. I had never once looked down on poor students because of wealth, but now, seeing Candy trailing pitifully after Ethan, I felt disgust for the first time. Without hesitation, I shot back. "Jealous, Ethan, I have money, looks, and power. Why would I ever be jealous of a poor girl in knockoff clothes? What qualifications does she even have to compare with me? Or did yesterday's slap not remind you clearly enough of your position? If that's the case, I don't mind giving you another one." I raised my hand, ready to strike. Candy immediately rushed forward, and Ethan instinctively shielded her in his arms. Seeing that, I didn't hesitate and swung twice, my palms landing squarely, one on each of them. "Good," I said softly, "now you both have one." Then I turned and walked upstairs, leaving only a final command behind. "Get out, the Warren family doesn't welcome you." Candy's eyes turned red, while Ethan, humiliated beyond reason, wanted to charge at me, only to be stopped by Lily. That day, Ethan was essentially thrown out of the Warren home. In the past, when I lost my temper, I would also kick him out in anger. But it had always been like the petty tantrum of a neighbor's little sister. Angry yet still somewhat endearing, but this time was different. This time, I truly hated him. The look in my eyes toward him was one of loathing, as if I wanted to tear him apart. What infuriated him more was that he knew I despised his illegitimate brother the most, and everyone in the circle knew the two brothers never got along. Yet yesterday, in front of everyone, I had chosen Nathan Reed, humiliating him completely. And by this morning, the whole circle already knew that Emily Warren had abandoned Ethan and chosen Nathan. Clearly, it had been spread by Nathan himself. Ethan's face darkened with rage. Candy tried to hold his hand, but he violently flung her aside. She lowered her head in grievance and said softly, "It's all my fault. If I had apologized sooner, you wouldn't have fought with Emily. I'll kneel for her. If she'll forgive you, I'll even give my life." Saying that, she dropped her knees at the Warren family's front door. Watching from upstairs, I curled my lips into a cold, mocking smile. My phone rang. It was my assistant asking what was going on. I chuckled. Nothing. Just watching a dog, pretending to be a saintly heroine. By the way, arranged that matter for me as soon as possible. Tomorrow afternoon would be best. As soon as I hung up, an unfamiliar number flashed on my screen. I paused for a moment before answering. A familiar male voice came through the line. "Miss Warren, shall we cooperate?" It was Nathan Reed. His voice was calm, carrying a trace of amusement. "I don't know exactly what happened between you and my bastard brother, but since you clearly despise him so much now, why don't we form an alliance through marriage? I'll help you get your revenge. How about it?" I hesitated, my expression darkening. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that involving outsiders would eventually drag them into danger. Perhaps sensing my hesitation, Nathan laughed easily. "It's fine. I'm alone. I have nothing to lose. You can't hurt me. And truth be told, I can't stand that bastard brother of mine. More importantly, I'm a Reed, and I owe my mother. I need to take back what belongs to us and restore her honor. If we marry, we'll each take what we need. Nothing more. I won't bother you, and you won't bother me. Deal?" When the words reached that point, I nodded and said, "All right." Nathan sounded satisfied and then asked with concern, "Do you want me to chase those two dogs off from your doorstep?" I paused, shook my head and replied, "No need. They won't last long." No sooner had I spoken than Ethan and Candy finally left. He humiliated like that. Ethan was bound to blow off steam at some bar later. I thought for a moment, then asked Nathan, "Would you mind? There's a gathering tonight, and I'd like you to show up with me." Without hesitation, he agreed. After we hung up, I quickly sent a message to my assistant. "Get me a copy within 2 hours. I want it before tomorrow afternoon." The news that Ethan had come to see me only to be thrown out, and disgrace quickly spread throughout the circle. His mother was the first to call me. I didn't hesitate to answer. As always, she started by saying her son knew he was wrong, then played the emotional card, hoping I would come to the Ree house to clear up the misunderstanding. Before hanging up, she added, her tone carrying a note of displeasure, "Emily, even if you and Ethan are having a disagreement, you should never have humiliated him by choosing that illegitimate child. You've embarrassed not only Ethan, but also me, your Aunt Reed." I was very unhappy about what happened yesterday, but since the Warren family was present, and it was the first time I'd ever seen you so angry, I held back until now. The cold wind whipped against me, making me furrow my brows. I replied without thinking, "Aunt Reed, let's not forget that Uncle Reed's first wife was Nathan's mother. They only weren't accepted because they alloped, if we're being honest." My words cut off as I realized I had gone too far. Her tone instantly soured with displeasure. I quickly softened, gave a faint smile, and apologized before ending the call. When I lowered the phone, I saw Nathan standing not far away in a khaki trench coat, watching me with an easy, knowing smile. Hesitant, I walked toward him and asked reflexively, "When did you get here?" "Just now," he said. "Oh," I muttered and followed him inside the clubhouse. The moment we stepped into the private room, Ethan, already drunk, sensed something and turned his head. Our eyes met, and he immediately stormed over, face dark with fury. "What the hell are you doing here, dragging this pretty boy along just to flaunt him in front of me? Emily Warren, are you trying to make me jealous? Can't you think of a new trick? Doing the same thing over and over, what's the point?" He turned to his half-brother with a mocking smile. "You're just my stand-in, what do you have to be so smug about? You and your mother are the same shameless trash." Before his words even finished, the sound of a slap rang out. The lights in the private room flicked on, and a red mark bloomed instantly across Ethan's pale cheek. Everyone froze in shock, and what stunned them even more was that the one who had struck him wasn't Nathan but me. The well-bred Emily Warren, who had always been the picture of a gentle, obedient young lady. "Are you done?" I asked coldly, my face expressionless, as I pulled Nathan to the sofa with me. We had barely sat down before Candy jumped out, eager to defend Ethan. Her eyes blazed with indignation. "Miss Warren, don't you think you're going too far? Whatever happened between you and me is one thing, but Ethan has always been sincere with you. And yet, in public, you slapped him for the sake of an illegitimate son. How could you treat him like that? How could you treat Aunt Reed like that after she's loved you like her own daughter since you were little? You're only arrogant because you were born into privilege. If I had your background, if I'd grown up alongside Ethan as his childhood sweetheart, I'd never be as ungrateful and heartless as you." Her words poured out in a single breath. Then she turned back, touching Ethan's red and cheek with tender concern. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh, rose to my feet, and lifted my hand for another slap. This time, Ethan caught my wrist in time. Seeing him block it, I smiled thinly. "Lovers quarreling, defending each other. You really do make quite the pair." Ethan started to retort, but the host of the gathering rushed forward to stop him. Most of the people at the party were Ethan's friends. Nathan, with his eccentric temper since childhood, had never gotten along with many in the circle, so naturally the crowd spoke up in Ethan's favor. While Ethan stepped outside to take a call, someone immediately spoke up. "Emily, you and Ethan grew up together. How could things turn out like this? Isn't this just a misunderstanding? Or maybe someone said something malicious that made you think the wrong way. Ethan has treated you like a princess since you were little. Don't make him angry over an outsider." At the mention of Candy, everyone's eyes turned toward her. She was the poor scholarship girl Ethan had dragged into this circle. But everyone here knew perfectly well she didn't have the qualifications to ever be the future Mrs. Reed. Candy felt the humiliation deeply. She lowered her head, her eyes glistening with tears that refused to fall, her whole demeanor pitiful. It was exactly the same as in my previous life. Back then, Ethan had feared Candy would suffer slights in the Reed family, so the two of them became inseparable. I had spoken my harsh words in front of him, and Candy had acted just like this, looking wronged, lowering her head and crying softly, clutching Ethan's hand and saying, "It's all right," while deliberately arranging for us to leave together. That was when she had orchestrated the accidental collision with a truck. The moment Ethan returned and saw everyone's eyes on Candy, and Candy putting on her pitiful act, he immediately turned his cold gaze on me. "Emily Warren, what did you do this time? No matter what I've done to you, Candy has never treated you poorly, who bought you breakfast every morning before class, who saved you a seat at every basketball game. Emily, you can come at me, but you have no right to insult her." I tilted my head and let out a sharp laugh, as though I just heard the biggest joke. "Breakfast? That was Candy buying food I had already said I didn't like. As for saving me seats at basketball games, on the Warren family's eldest daughter, people are eager to give me their seats. Why on earth would I need her to save one for me?" My mocking stare silenced him, choking his words in his throat. His face darkened, anger building, Candy tuddled on his hand, tears spilling as she lifted her head. "Ethan, it's fine. I was willing to do those things for Emily. Even if she doesn't appreciate it, it doesn't matter. And Emily, I truly apologize. Please don't blame Ethan. You and he are destined for each other. Everyone says you're a golden couple. Unlike me, I only deserve to carry your shoes." She went on, her voice dripping with grievance until a loud, cutting voice came from the doorway. "That's wrong. You're not even qualified to carry Emily's shoes." The person who walked in was Natalie Brooks, my childhood best friend from Southbridge. She had been studying abroad for years. At her sudden appearance, the entire room was shocked, everyone standing up in surprise. "Jojo, when did you get back?" "Wow, Jojo, you're too much. Coming back without telling anyone first." Natalie smiled thinly, exchanged a few perfunctory greetings, and then plopped herself right down beside me. Her eyes locked on Candy, sharp and unflinching. "Go on. Why'd you stop? Weren't you talking so much just now?" Then she turned to me. "Emily, what's wrong with you? How could you let some little fake saint like her get under your skin?" I perched my lips, slipping some medicine quietly from under her hand. When I turned my head, my eyes met Nathan Reed's across the room. He was slouched lazily on the sofa, lips curled in a careless smile, one eyebrow raised, looking every bit the arrogant rogue. Candy's face instantly darkened. Ethan tried to say something, but Natalie cut him off with biting sarcasm. Some people, huh? We've all been with Emily since childhood, but now you betray her for someone you've barely known 2 months. Everyone knows Emily is famous for her good temper. She's been slandered, bullied by her so-called childhood sweetheart, and she's grown thin from it all. It breaks my heart to see her like this, and to think someone once said he would treat Emily like a princess forever. Aren't those words slapping you in the face now? Her words pointed straight at Ethan, and the others around couldn't help nodding in agreement. Candy had only been around for 2 short months, yet already stirred up so much chaos. Ethan opened his mouth, but the words stuck in his throat. His face twisted with embarrassment as he glanced at Candy. 2 months. That was all it had been. It really wasn't worth fighting with my childhood sweetheart over an outsider. I smiled faintly, then stood up and picked up a glass of wine from the table. With an open, generous tone, I said, "All right, it's nothing serious. Let's stop arguing. Ethan, I'm not angry with you anymore. Drink this glass of wine, and we'll laugh it off as if nothing ever happened." I placed the wine in front of him, but before Ethan could move, Candy, knowing she could never truly blend into this circle, jumped in and volunteered. She downed the glass in one breath. Her pale face flushed crimson almost instantly, and she swayed as the alcohol hit her. "Emily," she said, her voice hazy. "It was all my fault before. I'm sorry." I only gave her a small smile, then subtly signaled to Natalie. She was never one to sit still. She'd already been restless in the private room. Catching my cue, she immediately called out to everyone, suggesting they all head out for a change of scene. Taking the opportunity, I tudged Nathan Reed along with me to leave. Ethan instinctively tried to follow, but I stopped him. "That wine was a little strong. You're clearly drunk. You should stay here and look after her." "No need." Ethan began to protest reflexively, but this was still before Candy had saved him, before his feelings for her had truly deepened. Even so, watching me leave with the brother he hated most, gnawed at him. I turned and stared straight at Candy, who was already flushed and dizzy. She couldn't stand my gaze. Overheated, she suddenly clutched Ethan's arm and whimpered, "Ethan, could you stay with me? I don't know anyone else here." Her eyes brimmed with tears. The only person she could claim as a friend in that room was him. After all, he was the one who had brought her in. Ethan sighed, helpless, and urged, "Fine, but you two come back quickly." Before I could answer, Nathan pulled me out. I closed the door to the private room and stood quietly outside, Nathan beside me. After a long while, muffled noises began to drift from within. I crept closer and peeked inside. What I saw made my stomach twist. On the sofa, the two of them had already lost all restraint. Before I could look longer, a warm hand covered my eyes. Nathan's voice murmured gently, "Don't dirty your eyes with this." I shook him off and immediately sent a message to Natalie. Within minutes, she returned with several people. My face flared hot with panic. I rushed to block her way. "No, don't go in. I've opened another room. Let's go there instead." Natalie played along, but deliberately raised her voice. "What are you doing?" "I just got off a plane. I'm exhausted. I need to sit down and rest." Pretending I couldn't stop her, she pushed past. The others, already burning with curiosity, seized the chance and flung the door open. The sight inside froze everyone in shock. Some gasped, others screamed. Candy's clothes were nearly stripped off, Ethan's shirt half undone, their bodies entangled on the sofa. Scenes like this weren't unheard of in the wealthy circle, but to see it erupt so suddenly, right before their eyes, it left everyone reeling. Ethan snapped back to himself first. Panicked, he scrambled to pull his clothes back on. Candy, having drunk the drugged wine, was still dazed, unaware of what was happening, clinging to him desperately, begging for his attention. The commotion drew stares from every corner of the club. Whispers spread like wildfire, some calling it shameless, others sneering, most simply watching the show. The atmosphere devolved into chaos. Ethan shoved Candy away, but when she still clung to him, he grabbed the remaining wine from the table and splashed it over her to shock her awake. Finally, she began to regain her senses. Flustered and sweating, Ethan turned to me, stammering, "Emily, it's not what it looks like." "It's not." He tried to step closer, but with each step he took, I retreated one. My eyes burned red with tears. It was as if he had suffered the greatest humiliation in the world. Ethan cursed angrily, spitting out, shameless, before storming out of the clubhouse. Joe immediately played along, calling after him, "Ethan, how could you treat Emily like this? He loved you so much, and this is how you repay him. What about those vows you made that you'd never part until death? Do they mean nothing now?" Everyone had grown up together, and it was true Ethan was the one who had first wronged me. Hearing Joe's scolding, the others joined in one by one, turning their blame on him. Just moments ago, they had been speaking in his defense and accusing me. Now, after what they had seen, they couldn't hide their disappointment. Candy, the center of the scandal, suddenly came to her senses. With a sharp scream, she scrambled to put her clothes back on, clutching Ethan's hand with all her strength. But at the slightest touch, he flung her off violently. She froze for a second, then collapsed into incoherent sobbing. As I walked out of the clubhouse, I laughed lightly. That was satisfying, really satisfying. Nathan Reed smirked, removing his coat and draping it over my shoulders. I didn't hesitate to nod and thanks. He spoke carelessly. "Emily, your childhood sweetheart, just staged a little bedroom play in front of you with another woman. Doesn't that sting? I remember you used to like that bastard brother of mine, didn't you?" "Like?" I gave a self-mocking smile. Yes, I liked him. In my last life, after I thought I had slept with him, Ethan showered me with care. When it was discovered that I was pregnant, we rushed to get married. Even though we had nothing else, I kept thinking as long as I was with the man I loved, it was enough. I once believed I was the happiest woman in the world. While I was pregnant, he fretted over me constantly. He would run home after work, afraid that the maid's cooking wouldn't suit me. So he even spent time learning how to cook. After Anna was born, Ethan proudly declared she was the second princess of his heart. The first was me. I thought I was blessed. Until our 10th year of marriage, when he stopped touching me and in secret bought up shares of the Warren Group, pushing us toward ruin. From that moment, all that supposed happiness became nothing but a cruel joke. Nathan studied me for a long time. When I refused to continue, he didn't press further. Meanwhile, the Reed family scrambled in damage control. First, they contacted reporters to delete the photos and scrub the trending news. Then they called my parents to explain. But the scandal was already out of control. It wasn't until a month later, at the Reed family patriarch's birthday banquet, that things calmed somewhat. The moment I arrived, Aunt Reed rushed over as if she had found her savior, apologizing profusely. For the entire month, both I and the rest of the Warren family had avoided the Reeds at every opportunity, leaving her no chance to explain. My father's face stayed dark. His precious daughter had been humiliated so deeply. As a parent, he knew who his daughter truly loved. Even if that day I had pointed to Nathan, in his heart, he thought it was out of spite. For the patriarch's birthday, my mother forced a polite smile, but she wasn't eager to entertain Aunt Reed either. Seeing that neither of my parents would respond, Aunt Reed turned her pleading eyes on me. "Emily, Ethan isn't that kind of person. This must all be a misunderstanding. You believe him, don't you? You don't know how much he regretted it. He shut himself in his room for a whole week, not eating or drinking. As for that girl, don't worry. We've already sent her away. Ethan himself demanded it. She'll never appear again. Please don't stay angry at him. Can't you just go see him? He's loved you the most since childhood." Her voice trembled, her eyes read. I nodded lightly and went upstairs. The moment I opened the door, something came flying at me. I dodged and snapped. "What's wrong with you? Have you lost your mind?" Ethan turned around, startled. Then his face lit up with joy as he hurried over, like a scolded puppy finally seeing its owner. "Emily, why didn't you answer my messages? Why didn't you pick up my calls? Look, I've cleaned myself. I'm not dirty. I'm really not. Please believe me." He reached out his hand toward me. His once fair skin was rubbed raw, patches scraped red. I was silent for a few seconds, then reached out and brushed it gently with my fingertips. The moment I touched him, Ethan went stint in pain and let out a small sound. When he saw me looking, he immediately quieted, lowering his head like a chastised puppy. I pulled my hand back, my expression calm. "Enough. No more of this. Today is grandfather's birthday. Let's go downstairs." At my words, Ethan's face lit up with excitement. He instinctively reached to hold my hand, but I pulled away. His expression darkened, assuming I was still angry. I explained quickly, "Grandfather is waiting for us. Let's go." Hearing that, his smile returned. After all, today wasn't just a birthday. It was the day to announce the engagement. To him that met my choice had, in the end, fallen back to him. With pride, he tilted his chin high and followed behind me downstairs, seeing that things between us looked fine again. Aunt Reed beamed and eagerly pressed a family heirloom into my hand. I knew you'd be my daughter-in-law. This was left to me by my mother, and now I'm giving it to you. I immediately stepped back, smiling politely. Let's wait until grandfather makes the announcement first. I turned toward where the old man sat. The others followed my gaze. The patriarch was 80 years old this year, but he looked more like he was past 90. His face carried little joy, only heavy sorrow. My mother sighed quietly. Look at him. Clearly, he still blinds himself in his heart. The smile faded from my lips. Over the past month, I had not been idle. I had investigated the truth of Nathan Reed's mother. Nathan's parents had truly loved each other, but because of him, I was not. He had never been allowed the right to choose his marriage. But he refused to give in. He chose love and ran away with her. For the first 5 years of their allotment, no one came looking. They lived happily, safely, until Nathan was 3. That year, the great-grandfather collapsed under the strain of business and political pressure. He was able to have swarmed like vultures, eager to divide the Reed fortune. Desperate, the old patriarch sent people to find his missing son. But on the way back, Nathan's mother was killed in a car accident. Nathan's father, utterly broken, returned home with his young child. He lived like a hollow machine, going to work, coming home, speaking to no one, participating in nothing. The patriarch, unable to watch his son waste away, personally drugged him and forced a marriage between him and Aunt Reed. They thought that if another woman entered his life, he might finally let go of the past. But by the 7th month of Aunt Reed's pregnancy with Ethan, Nathan's father fell ill and passed away. On his deathbed, his final thoughts were still of the wife he had lost. From then on, the patriarch lived consumed by regret, endlessly wondering whether he had been wrong, but he never received an answer. At first, the rumors in the circle accused the patriarch and his wife of driving their son to death of killing the first wife. At that time, the whispers of a legitimate child weren't aimed at Nathan. They were aimed at Ethan. From birth, Ethan had people pointing at him, calling him a bastard, a murderer. To protect her son, Mrs. Reed twisted the truth, claiming Nathan's mother was just a mistress, that Nathan's father never loved her, that Nathan was the real illegitimate child. My chest ached as I thought of Nathan's story. His mother gone when he was only 3. His father dead by the time he was 5. From his earliest memories, he had been scorned, pointed at, called a bastard, the son of a shameless home wrecker. Tears welled in my eyes. If it had been my child, if anyone had dared to treat them that way, I would have given my life to protect them. A sharp, burning gaze landed on me. I felt it instantly and lifted my eyes. Under the glow of the lights, Nathan descended slowly from the 2nd floor. But Nathan's eyes from start to finish were fixed only on me, the little princess of the Warren family. Without realizing it, I smiled. Ethan, jealous, stepped in front of me, blocking my view. Grandfather Reed finally spoke up, saying it was time to announce another piece of good news. At that, his face, usually heavy with sorrow, brightened with a long-missed smile. Ethan straightened his back, chin raised proudly, looking at Nathan with the air of a victor. His expression seemed to say, "See, you're nothing but a useless stand-in. My childhood sweetheart will never abandon me." He turned reflexively, ready to take my hand. I stepped back 2 paces, and just then, grandfather's voice rang out. "Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to attend my birthday banquet. But what makes today even more joyous is the engagement between the Warren and Reed families. The fiancé will be our family's sole heir. Emily Warren and Nathan Reed, both of you, please come forward." The announcement froze the room. Shocked murmurs rippled through the guests. The Warren engagement wasn't with Ethan, but with the illegitimate son Nathan. Then why was the Warren princess still standing beside Ethan? Isn't that misleading? Lifting my skirt slightly, my face alight with joy, I began to step forward, but Ethan seized my arm in disbelief. "You're going to get engaged to him, to an illegitimate son. Emily Warren, are you still mad at me? Can't you stop making a scene at such an important occasion?" I frowned and flung his hand away. "Who do you think you are? Why would I waste anger on you? Ethan Reed, let me tell you clearly, I am going to be engaged to your brother Nathan. Last week we had our horoscopes read. They matched perfectly, and the wedding will be held on July 7. You're welcome to attend. Oh, and one more thing. Your father and Aunt Reed were never truly in love. Your father only loved Nathan's mother. If not for grandfather's interference, you wouldn't even exist. Go find out the truth yourself. I let go of him and strode onto the stage. Nathan extended his palm, and I placed my hand in his, our fingers interlocking. As I said, I announced, the engagement is next Monday, and the wedding will be on July 7. Ethan went berserk, trying to rush the stage, but Aunt Reed held him back with all her strength. His hateful eyes locked on me, burning with humiliation he would never forget. But he also knew now wasn't the time to lose control. Grandfather called us, the new couple, into his study. His words were brief but heavy, the truth about Nathan's mother. Perhaps it was age that loosened his guard, but when he spoke of his son, tears streamed down his wrinkled face. He mourned his daughter-in-law, the woman he had never even met. His meaning was clear. When Nathan formally became heir, he would step back from all family affairs, including the matter of restoring Nathan's mother's honor. Nathan listened with the detached calm of a stranger. Only when the words father and mother were spoken did he show a flicker of emotion. When we left the study, I gripped his hand tightly, my heart aching. In the end, it was his own grandfather who had destroyed his family, causing the death of his mother and in turn his father. No matter how much grandfather loved Nathan now, it could never replace a mother's love. If she had lived, his father would still be alive. Nathan would never have been a child without parents. Feeling the warmth of my hand in his, Nathan finally gave me a smile. But in that same moment, a waiter suddenly rushed at us, brandishing a knife. None of us had time to react. Before we could move, someone else was faster. He snatched the knife away and kicked the waiter squarely in the chest. The man tumbled backward, crashing down the staircase. Blood spilled from his mouth, and a dark stain spread beneath him. He gasped in agony, clutching his stomach, crying out, "My child, my child." Only then did we see clearly who the waiter was. It was Candy. Her face was badly scarred from burns, almost unrecognizable at first glance. And the one who had reacted first, who had disarmed her in an instant, was none other than Ethan. He had come to overhear what grandfather was saying to his illegitimate brother, but instead had stumbled upon a truth-shattering secret. He himself was the real illegitimate child, the one who had destroyed another woman's family. When Ethan heard grandfather's words, he looked utterly shattered. Seeing Nathan standing with me broke him, and though he wanted to step forward, he didn't dare. It wasn't until he noticed a waiter charging at us with a knife that he rushed forward instinctively. I followed Nathan down the stairs. The moment Candy saw me, she seemed to forget her pain and lunged at me with crazed eyes. "It's you, it's all you, you bitch. If it weren't for you, Ethan wouldn't have abandoned me. He wouldn't have abandoned this child either. It's all because of you. Emily Warren, why are you still alive? Why don't you just die? You tried to use public opinion to push me to my death before, and now you want to kill the Reed family's child too. A vicious woman like you doesn't deserve to step into this family's gates." Her words were sharp and venomous. Aunt Reed, hearing her mention the Reed family's child, instantly thought of her own son. Panicked, she ordered someone to call an ambulance. "If anything happens to my son's child, I'll never forgive you." The ambulance arrived quickly. Aunt Reed insisted on going with Candy, but Nathan stepped in her way. Toward this illegitimate child, he had never shown kindness, and now he coldly snapped. "Get out of the way, you slut. You've already stolen your brother's woman, and now you want to force his child to death too. You're worse than an animal." When she turned her accusations on me, I kept calm and silent. But watching Nathan be humiliated like that, I instinctively wanted to step forward. He stopped me, giving me a steady look that told me to trust him. Suddenly, a recording began to play in the silent hall. Andy's voice filled the room. In the recording, she confessed to staging a scene of being falsely accused of stealing money, and even spending a fortune to spread rumors that I had driven her to the brink of death. She mocked, "What's this little money compared to becoming Mrs. Reed? Even in 10 lifetimes, I couldn't spend it all. Ethan is just a fool, his mother coddled into uselessness. Next time I'll lure Emily to the mountains, pretend to risk my life to save her, and then she'll fall hopelessly in love with me. After that, won't she be mine to control?" The hall went deathly quiet. Aunt Reed, who had been clutching Candy's hand, let go at once. Even Ethan, who had believed Candy's every word and blamed me for everything, stood frozen in shock. I turned toward the source of the recording, stunned. A silver-haired young man strode in, grinning arrogantly. "Nathan, little brother, next time call me earlier, will you? I almost boarded a plane for vacation." Then he dipped his head toward me with a sly smile. And you, Nathan's little bride, why didn't you tell the family about suffering such humiliation? Fortunately, our Nathan has always kept this matter in mind. My eyes turned red as I looked at Nathan. The truth was, I had wanted to forget all of it. It happened so long ago, and since no one seemed to care about the aftermath, I buried it in silence. But now, hearing my suffering laid bare, my parents couldn't hold back their fury. The Warrens demanded an explanation. But before more could be said, Candy collapsed in pain and was rushed into emergency surgery. Hours later, the news came. The child could not be saved. Worse still, the injury had been too severe during pregnancy, and because she was treated too late, her uterus had to be removed. When Aunt Reed heard her grandchild was gone, she flew into a rage demanding justice. She raised her hand and slapped my mother hard across the face. She didn't know the full truth about Nathan's parents, but just 2 hours earlier, the real story had already been revealed. A venomous woman like Candy had framed an innocent scapegoat, and now she still wanted the Warrens to give her an explanation. My mother's fury boiled over. She slapped Aunt Reed across the face in return. Your son didn't care about the truth. He forced my daughter to kneel and apologize because of rumors, and now you demand justice from us. No, if the Reed family doesn't make this clear today, I'm not leaving. My daughter endured humiliation and silence, never telling us, but your son, whenever he suffers even the smallest grievance, he runs crying to his mother. You call me to accuse my daughter, to slander her. Who do you think you are? Does my daughter need your lectures? You can't even raise your son properly, and you dare to try teaching my daughter. Do you have any shame at all? I only called you sister out of respect. My mom snapped. Without it, you're not even worthy to touch the toes of his real wife. Watching her deliver those lines without even pausing for breath, I couldn't help but secretly give her a thumbs up. My mom's fighting power was truly impressive. My dad sat beside her with a dark expression, silently backing her up. Every time my mom said a line, he added his own. The two of them seamlessly in sync until they finally stopped. Then they both turned to look at me. My mom pulled me into her arms, her voice tender with guilt. Sweetheart, how could you suffer so much and not tell us? Didn't I tell you that whatever happens, you can always come to me? You can always lean on me, act spoiled if you need to. It's our fault. Your dad and I have been too busy with work, caring too little. You've always been so independent since you were little, never really acted spoiled, never asked for anything outright. If it weren't for that recording, we would never have known how much you were humiliated at school. I didn't want to cry. I longed to hold on to that look of pain and love in her eyes. But in an instant, my tears poured out uncontrollably. For just this grievance, my parents acted like they wished they could bear it in my place. If in my past life they hadn't been forced into madness, if they hadn't had to watch their daughter's tendons cut and her body tortured beyond recognition, their hearts would surely have shattered with pain. Aunt Reed, however, still wasn't finished. She continued to fuss and argue until Grandfather Reed slammed his cane against the floor, his voice stern. Enough, haven't you shamed us enough? Get out. He turned toward my family and bowed slightly. Emily, Nathan, it's our Reed family who wronged you. We'll give you an explanation. Emily, it was my failure to discipline my grandson. That's my fault and I apologize. He spoke with solace and sincerity. I hurriedly wanted to stop him, but Nathan caught my arm, shaking his head. He only lifted his chin, his eyes filled with cold disdain, not saying a word. To him, this old man had always favored his bastard brother. When Nathan was bullied as a child and went to complain, Grandfather would play both sides. He'd say he would discipline Ethan, but in reality, all Ethan got was a few words of reproach before being handed sweets. Maybe only at the very end of his life, looking back, would this old man realize just how horribly wrong he had been. But even then, in his heart, he would convince himself everything he did was for the Reed family. He had no regrets. Even his mistakes, he would believe, were sacrifices for the family's sake. Later, when Candy finally regained consciousness in the hospital, I was in the ward with Ethan. Her hand instinctively went her stomach. Empty. Nothing there. In that moment, she struggled up from the bed and lunged at me, eyes wild. Ethan slumped forward and tried to stop her breaking down in tears. But Candy shrieked hysterically. Why are you still protecting this woman? It's because of her our child is dead. Why do you still shield her? Don't you know we lost our baby, Emily Warren? UF***K spirit. I don't know what trick you used to seduce Ethan, but you killed my child. Even if I die, I'll never forgive you." She thrashed like a mad woman. I simply looked at her quietly and laughed with scorn. The sight of my indifference drove her even crazier, and she tried to come at me again, only to be blocked by Ethan once more. But this time, he didn't stay silent. He laughed bitterly, his voice dripping with mockery. "The one who killed your child was me. I was the one who kicked you. That's why you fell down the stairs. If you want to accuse a murderer, then accuse me. The enough candy. I'll give you a sum of money. Leave this place. Go anywhere. Just not here." He let out a heavy sigh and pulled me out of the ward. Once outside, he found a quiet corner. He looked at me, lips parting as if he wanted to speak. But no words came out. He just stared, torn and silent. I smiled and said, "Ethan, did you really think that by driving Candy away and saying a few apologies I would forgive you? If that's what you thought, then you were completely wrong. I will never forgive you in this lifetime. Chloe is truly gone. There's no way I can forgive you, nor can I forgive you on behalf of Chloe, the girl you spoiled endlessly since childhood, the daughter you were supposed to protect as her so-called father." I turned and walked away. Ethan couldn't hold back and demanded, "Emily, what on earth did I do that was so unforgivable? Why do you hate me this much?" I paused for just a moment, said nothing, and left the hospital. Time passed quickly, and soon July arrived. The Reed family's response was to cast Ann Treat out of the house, but Ethan still carried Reed blood, so he remained, reduced to nothing more than a useless young master. Candy refused to leave at first, making scenes at both the Reed and Warren households again and again. But in the end, Ethan found a way to drive her off. The next time I saw him was at my wedding. The rings had been entrusted to Nathan and Chloe, serving as my bridesmaid, personally wed to fetch them. I was left alone in the dressing room when Ethan walked in. I was surprised for just a second, but quickly recovered my composure. He looked far more disheveled than before. His mother had been cast out of the Reeds, and he himself, once a lofty heir, was now nothing more than a despised outcast. With a sunken face, he staggered toward me. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but choked on his words. Finally, he managed to say, "Emily, long time no see. These past weeks, I'd been having a dream. It repeats over and over. I dreamed we were married. I dreamed I ordered someone to sever the tendons in your hands. I dreamed I drove your father to his death, drove your mother into madness. And I dreamed of Chloe." His voice shook. "In the dream, I laughed like a madman watching you in agony, begging for death but never finding release. I felt triumphant, but when you refused to even beg for death, I panicked. I forced you to swallow what I said were Chloe's ashes, but it was useless. And when I finally realized I truly loved you, you were already dead. That had to be just a dream, right? Tell me it was just a dream." He stared at me desperately, craving an answer. Every time he woke, the dream haunted him. Each time he fell back asleep, the same nightmare replayed. It was too vivid, too real, almost as if it had actually happened. I lowered my head and laughed softly, but tears slipped down my cheeks. I said only one sentence. "Ethan, what right do you have to even speak of Chloe?" Just those words revealed everything. The truth. He finally understood why the sweet little girl who had adored him since childhood had suddenly turned cold. He finally understood the hatred in my eyes each time I looked at him. He collapsed to the ground, sobbing, pounding his fists into his own chest, whispering again and again, "I'm a beast. I truly am a beast." His sobs grew ragged until he could hardly breathe. I stood silent. I said nothing as he pulled out a knife he had hidden and plunged it into his chest. As the blood spread and his consciousness began to fade, he looked at me and gasped, "Emily, what will it take for you to forgive me?" A knock sounded at the door. I lifted my gown slightly and smiled coldly. Before leaving, I reminded him, "I already gave you poison. It won't kill you, but it will make sure you'll never father it. I was a child." He laughed unconcerned. "It doesn't matter. Without you, I'd never be with another woman anyway. As long as you forgive me, even if it costs my life, I'll accept it." I chuckled bitterly. "What use is your life to me? Unless Chloe can come back, I will never forgive you." But bringing Chloe back was impossible. A fool's dream, which meant forgiveness was impossible too. Ethan finally lost too much blood and fell unconscious. I stumbled into a warm chest and met Nathan's deep, tender gaze. Raising an eyebrow, I asked with a smile, "Nathan, what are you doing here?" He glanced once at his pathetic younger brother lying on the floor, then stroked my hair gently, a smile curving his lips. Of course, I came to rescue my beautiful bride. Ethan was discovered in time and rushed to the hospital. Meanwhile, the ceremony went on. The priest's voice rang out. Do you, Mr. Reed, take Miss Warren to be your lawful wedded wife, and do you swear before all, whether in wealth or poverty, in health or in sickness, to forever love her, cherish her, remain loyal to her, and never abandon her until the very last breath of life? Will you? All the while, Nathan's gaze never once left me, his beautiful bride. Listening to the priest's words, tears slipped from his eyes without him even noticing. His voice trembled as he nodded and said, I do. When he was a boy, he had once been locked in a dark storage room by his stepmother, simply because he pushed his cruel younger brother. It was Ryan who found him then, insisting on staying with him through that long, terrifying night. From that moment on, Ryan had a place in his heart that no one could ever move. The priest then turned to me with the same question. My head buzzed, my mind replaying fragments of memory. Ethan's past life came rushing back, but so did my own soul's memory of what happened after I died in that other life. Nathan had killed Aunt Reed and Ethan, fed his stepfather's corpse to the dogs, and buried me in the plot he had purchased long before. All because, when I was young, I once joked, I wonder if I'll ever get to see the ending of this anime. Because of that single sentence, every Saturday he came to my grave and played the newest episode for me, one after another, until the final episode was released. When the story concluded, he smiled with contentment and willingly gave his life for me. So it turned out there had always been someone who believed that meeting me was the happiest thing in his life. Someone who had loved me so deeply that even death could never make him regret it.